Okay, we're going to call the Santa Barbara City Council meeting of August 11th, 2009 to order. Will you please stand to say the Pledge of Allegiance with us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Falcone is absent. Francisco?
Here.
Horton?
Here.
House is absent. Schneider?
Here.
Williams is absent. Mayor Bloom?
Here. Are there any changes to the agenda?
No, there aren't, Madam Mayor.
Okay. You have a couple to read on the consent calendar.
Item 2, adoption of ordinance for amendments to the 2007 Fire Code.
I'm sorry. I'm going to interrupt you, which I don't usually do. Public comment, we do have a couple of them. I was looking at there's one on the number 2, which she was reading, but let's go ahead with the public comment. Hans Kistner, followed by Monica Jones. Sorry. Almost forgot you. They wouldn't let me forget you.
I appreciate it. Well, you may have felt forgotten if you've been looking for someone as the church in Santa Barbara continues to pray for you even when you don't have council meetings. And
Thank you.
I was to be here a month ago, but I was serving jury duty.
Yep.
So I had plenty of time. To pray for you all there while I was waiting to not be selected. Today, though, I wanted to let you know that on Thursday at First Baptist Church of last week, there were about 60 folks who came from the city of Rancho Cucamonga and other church leaders in Santa Barbara. And we spread out over the city at different key areas, like the Mission and like the intersection of Hollister and Turnpike, which used to be the stage route that went up north and south as you come into the city. And in small groups, we surrounded the city with prayer. And so I just wanted to encourage you with the fact that the church in Santa Barbara loves you and prays for you. And Heavenly Father, we pray your blessing on this group of men and women that you have called to serve this city. We ask that you would give them wisdom, inspire them with courage to lead into this new century. Thank you for all the good that you're doing through them and the blessings you've given this city. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Thanks a lot.
You, Monica Jones, will be the last speaker. Oops, sideways. There you go. That's
Expert
good.
now.
Just one little, I would have fumbled with it. Thank you.
I just came to thank you from the Friends of Los Banos for having faith in us. As you know, due to budget cuts, you were going to cut the Sunday swim at Los Banos and cut the free recreational swim at Ortega Pool. And you were kind enough to believe in us that we would find the money, and indeed we have. So we are having a celebration party on this Sunday from 1 to 4. You're all welcome. You in the audience and anyone else listening is also welcome to come. You can bring your bathing suits and swim from 12 to 2, and the party will be from 1 to 4. And we will have food and music and door prizes, free punches, so you can keep swimming at Los Banos. So we would welcome all of you to come. If you have any questions, you can go onto the website of www.Friends of Los Banos, or if you would like to call me, again, my number is 569-2407, 569-2407. So we welcome all of you to come, and I do want to thank you again for having faith in us that we would find the money. Thank you very much.
Well, we definitely need to thank you, which we have over and over, but it's really been good. And I know when things are hard, it's good to see the citizens really stepping up to the plate. So how nice of the Friends of Los Banos, and you in particular. You've been all over the place.
I have.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. We have one more speaker, Kate Smith.
My name is Kate Smith. God bless America. Mrs. Smith went to Washington last week on August 4th. I danced the White House for Barack Obama's birthday. And on August 8th, I chalked the White House for mine. In between is the date August 6th. In Santa Barbara, the Nuclear Age Peace Foundation celebrated its 15th annual Sadako Peace Day in honor of the Hiroshima. So begins my journey to an Imadanari in Washington and a celebration of Sadako Peace Day. On 08/08/08, a year ago, I was with 4 important people in my life, and I started my year of living out loud. I ran for the Santa Barbara School District to expose school corruption. And so I did. The whistleblowers are amassing. A consultant is coming in. We look forward to working with you to expose school corruption so that we can then reform education and restore justice and democracy in our schools and community. With that in mind, I would like you to know that the Gang Task Force Leadership Council is a problem. The money approved.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Your 2 minutes is up. Thank you. Okay, we're going to go on to consent calendar now. Susan, you can read number 2.
Item 2, adoption of ordinance for amendments to the 2007 Fire Code regarding fire sprinklers, recommending that council adopt by reading of title only. An ordinance of the Council of the City of Santa Barbara amending subsection E of section 804020 and subsection C and D of section 20220420 of the Santa Barbara Municipal Code concerning local requirements for the installation of automatic fire sprinklers. And item 4, abrogation of noise easement for 5441 Hollister Avenue, Goleta, including recommendation B that council adopt by reading of title only, a resolution of the Council of the City of Santa Barbara accepting an abrogation and noise easement imposing conditions on real property known as Assessor's Parcel Number 071140072.
Okay, that's reading by title only without objection. We'll waive further reading. Do you have anything you want to take off, anybody?
Oh, I'd just like to ask a question about item 4, please.
Okay, let's go to item 2 first. I'd like to take them in numerical order. This is the fire sprinkler ordinance. We've seen this several times. This is the final vote on it. Karen Fricklin is here to tell us about what she thinks about it. Just a second there. Okay. Go ahead, Karen.
I'm here probably pretty late as I've been reading the newspaper what's happening with the sprinklers, and I guess you've probably already made up your mind, but I have a passion about it because I've just been finishing my remodel on the Mesa, and it was a harrowing experience, number one, because of the cost of the project. And I just think that the average family can't remodel as it is. I mean, it cost us so much more than we thought. And to put another burden on a person that's not in the fire area, to me, is exorbitant. And it's not $1,500 because I've become an expert on plumbers, electricians, and there's nothing that costs under $10,000 in any kind of a remodel. So I think some of the research that was done was not accurate, as far as I read in the newspaper. I have a cousin who's a construction lawyer in Santa Monica, and I told him that the city of Santa Barbara is trying to pass an ordinance, another ordinance for sprinklers, and he laughed. He said, that's money in the pocket for attorneys. He says, that's what I do all the time. He says, if you put sprinklers in your house, he's also a plumber by trade and has become a construction attorney. And he said, it's very expensive because they break. The plumbers they don't accurately do it. It's just another maintenance problem. So I think that that homeowners should have a choice. And I know that Santa Barbara doesn't like the idea of houses and remodeling. And what's going to happen is people are going to come in from LA with a lot of money, and they're going to remodel anyhow. They'll put the sprinklers in, but it's not going to be the average person that's going to be able to do it. So, I think I was in both fires. I was renting in the Mission, both fires, and we had it in our backyard. And I think, of course, in the Mission, in areas where it's high fire, it's absolutely, I would want to do that, but not in, I don't know what the statistics are that the house will burn down, but just one little note on what we went through in our remodel. We added on to a rotted deck in master bedroom. It's maybe 14 by 12 or something, and I have a beam going through my house, and I had the inspectors come out, and they said, okay, you need a smoke alarm. Of course, that's great. I need a smoke alarm. Put it in. We drywalled everything. Then another inspector came along and said, oh, well, you need a second fire alarm in your master bedroom, one on each side of the beam. I said, but I just drywalled. Why didn't the first inspector tell me so I could have done that? You know, that's going to cost me money. Well, I'm sorry. The first inspector didn't know this. You know, this is the kind of thing you go through. I'm 93 pounds now. I wasn't when I started my remodel. So to put another burden on the average working family, I think it's a mistake. And I think there will be a lot of lawsuits. So I'm finished. It's not going to affect me, but I'm trying to protect the average family. So I would vote no. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I understand. We talked to a lot of people about this, but the truth is that, the city of, I think it's San Juan Capistrano, there are other cities that have done this, and I think they're doing okay. So, you know, Karen, you had your 2 minutes. You actually almost had 3 minutes. So I just wanted to say a few things, and I know Dale's going to say something, and then I get to say the last word, so that's good. But, you know, this is something that we worked out with the Board of Realtors, we worked with the Contractors Association, and I'm just starting a remodel myself with my bathrooms. I'll let you know, but I'm not going to have to put in sprinklers because it's more than 75% of the house. I'm not going to do that. You wouldn't have had to either, just adding on one bedroom like that. So I think I really do. The more I think about it, the more it's like the old seatbelt thing that my dad said, don't make us put in seatbelts. If we want to put in seatbelts, we should be able to do that on our own. And but as Dale had said before, there's always a balance, and you have to figure out where you are in the, you know, how much are you requiring? Are you requiring people just to stay home and not move because it's dangerous out there? No. So what are we doing here, and how are we going to help people? 82% of fewer deaths when you have a sprinkler with a smoke alarm, if I remember right. So that was very compelling to me. But Dale, but you voted for it.
I voted for
remember.
it. I voted for it. Eventually, I had to be convinced.
I know, me too.
And just to address some of Mrs. Fricklin's concerns, which are certainly valid concerns, and it's something that we struggled with, both in Ordinance Committee and the Council, because the building code is essentially a health and safety code. It exists to set minimum standards for construction for human safety. That's really all it's about. And there's always a question of, is the next regulation to improve safety worth the cost? Is there enough benefit there? And it's a tough one to figure out. There have been a lot of advances in fire safety over the years, largely due to improved construction, and the reason that construction has improved is largely because of requirements in the building code. So this was a tough one, but I think we had some good input from the Board of Realtors and from contractors, and that's what led, for instance, to the decision to say that unless you were remodeling 75% or more of a house, you were not required to put in sprinklers, because I think everyone realizes it's a significant job, and it affects an entire house. So it has to be an extreme remodel to trigger the requirement for fire sprinklers. Anyway, the points that Mrs. Fricklin raised are certainly valid points. They're things that we struggled with as well.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I understand. So, okay. Does anybody want to take anything off of the consent calendar?
Yeah, item 4.
Oh, that's right. Okay, item 4. Let's go ahead and talk about that one, because I don't have any other speakers on it.
Concerning item 4, I just need some clarification. It may be a city attorney item, I'm not sure. But I do understand the abrogation easement. What confused me a bit in reading this item is that I don't remember seeing something like this in 7 years of serving on council, and this can't be the only project in the area covered by the abrogation agreements. So why is it that this one is coming to us and none other ones have come to us, at least that I've voted on? And it seemed like if it's an easement, wouldn't that be something that would just be recorded on title automatically, or does every one of these have to come to council? And maybe Steve can help me on that. I don't need to vote on it separately once I get the answer.
Okay. Mr. Wiley.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Horton, to answer your last question first, the reason these are brought to council is essentially a state government code requirement that for a city to accept an interest in real property, and of course an easement is an interest in real property, it has to be formally accepted by typically by the city council, and that's to prevent someone actually deeding land or an interest in property to the city without its knowledge, which actually is fairly common for land that's like a hillside that's too steep or something like that. You don't want a city having title to land like that without its knowledge and formal consent. So that's why we do this. It's a government code requirement. Ms. Johns may be able to respond more to your first question, but I'm pretty sure we do 2 or 3 of these a year, every year, and they're just on the consent agenda.
Ms. Johns, do you know anything about the number?
Hazel Johns, Assistant Airport Director. I don't know the specific number, but I know in the 20 years that I've been at the airport, we routinely bring them to council when there's development in the land use areas around the airport where overflight is required. So we do get navigation easements and we bring them to council, but I don't know the total number.
I think the difference is probably because we usually have a big project or something going on there, and then you see it as part of the project.
Yeah,
this is like a whole separate thing.
That could easily be the case, but I know there's been a tremendous amount of development out there, and since I've been here, and I don't recall seeing these. Now, it might have been just slipped through on consent, and I didn't take a look at it, but it just surprised me to why this one would come out like this. So
I can certainly go back and get a list of those that we have.
I'd just be interested in seeing
Email
that.
it
Thank
to
you.
you. Okay.
Yeah, I'd be interested in the numbers. Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, can I have a motion
Move consent.
Second.
for consent? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Item number 11.
Conversion Technology Project, Residual Solid Waste Resolution, recommending that council adopt by reading of title only. A resolution of the Council of the City of Santa Barbara regarding its intention to commit its community's residual solid waste to the Conversion Technology Facility to be located at the Tahiguas landfill.
Okay. Mr. Samario.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. Bob Samario, Assistant Finance Director. And we are here to talk about the Conversion Technology Project. And it's really to ask you to approve a resolution to expressing our intent to commit our residual municipal solid waste to the Conversion Technology Project. But I wanted to start with a little bit of background. About 2 years ago, we started on a project with the county to evaluate the feasibility of siting a facility at Tahiguas landfill. It's the county-run landfill here in the region. Site a facility that would convert our municipal solid waste into some kind of energy form, whether it would be electricity or something else. But the concept is that it would take our waste and divert it from our landfill and use that waste and make some kind of energy, typically electricity. And convert technology is used these days to describe newer technologies, unlike what has been done historically, where they just burn trash. But it's newer technologies that use varying degrees of heat to convert the material into some kind of a gas, synthetic gas or methane gas, and then that gas is actually used in turn is burned in turn to generate electricity through turning a turbine. And I always make a point again that this is not burning trash. This is really a new technology, and we think that it's appropriate for us to look at it at this point because we are running up against a capacity limit in our landfill, or at least the county-run landfill. Based on current projections, it's expected to run out of capacity somewhere around 2023, but certainly within the next 15 years. So we have something to deal with, and we have to look at alternatives. Of course, we can always try to ship our trash down south or up north, but I think that's sort of going to become an expensive proposition. So we're just looking at alternatives. In addition to what we're doing today with recycling programs, as you know, we're starting a new program come this November for food scraps, but there is a practical limit, and we recognize that, and at some point we're going to have to deal with that residual, and we're just looking for alternatives to burying it, which has its own environmental impacts. So in terms of the resolution itself, we are currently in the process of developing a request for proposals, an RFP, and we have 8 qualified vendors that have been screened and determined to be basically suitable to provide us a viable project. And we expect that RFP will go out sometime in October of this year. We'll get responses sometime in March, and then a few months to evaluate them. It's an unusual RFP because it's not just the city issuing an RFP or the county issuing an RFP. It's going to involve multiple agencies. There are actually 5 agencies, I believe, involved: the cities of Santa Barbara, Goleta, Solvang, Buellton, and then, of course, the county. The county of Santa Barbara and the city of Santa Barbara have been the lead, but we have now 5 jurisdictions who are participating in this project, and those jurisdictions are those who are currently delivering their solid waste to Tehiga's landfill. So it makes sense that they'd be part of the project. So it's an RFP that's going to be issued by 5 agencies. The 2 bigger players in this project are the city. We represent the majority, or at least the biggest share of the waste that's taken to Tehiga. It's about 43%, and then the county, and the rest of them are fairly small players. But so from a vendor's perspective, they are looking for some kind of at least some indication that we are all serious jointly, but it's particularly the city and the county that we're serious about this project, because they will have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to respond to this proposal. And we are concerned that if they don't feel that there is enough seriousness in this project, that we may not get a good response to the RFP. So our goal is to try to strengthen the RFP, get good responses, and get the right number of responses so we have a good selection to choose from. So the purpose of the resolution is for the city of Santa Barbara, and other agencies will be doing the same, is to express our seriousness, in a sense, our intent to commit our waste stream, our residual waste stream, to this project, assuming that all the goals are met and all the objectives are met, which will be determined primarily through the evaluation of the proposals process. So for now, it's for us to be able to communicate to the vendors. We are serious. We're a big player, and we do intend to commit our waste stream if everything else goes well and all the objectives and goals are met along the way. And if that occurs, then that's our intention. So that's really the purpose. This doesn't bind us in any way legally to, send our waste stream to any vendor. We have a lot of outs, if you will, down the road. But this, again, is just to strengthen the RFP. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Horton.
Thanks, Bob. On the bottom of the first page, I just wanted to clarify a little bit the paragraph that starts out: the resolution in no way binds the city to this project. If those who are in the city at whatever time this happens, which won't be me, decide that this is not a direction they want to go, do they have to justify withdrawal to a panel, or do they have to convince the Board of Supervisors to approve withdrawal, or can they just send a note over to the county saying we are no longer going to be involved in this? It wasn't clear exactly what this meant.
Right. Madam Mayor, Councilmember Horton, again, as I indicated, this resolution doesn't bind us in any way to this project. There are a lot of steps along the way that we're going to be checking back with council and all the jurisdictions, the elected officials, to make sure that all the goals are being met, the objectives are being met, and ultimately it's going to come down to a financial decision, because what the vendors are going to give us is a project and a design and all that, but ultimately it's going to be a tipping fee. And that tipping fee is going to have to make sense financially, and it's going to have to make sense to our ratepayers on a short-term but also a long-term basis. So I think there'll be plenty of opportunities along the way for our council and all the councils to be determining whether it makes sense for their own jurisdiction, their own ratepayers, and also just collectively for the region.
Can I just follow up to that? So at present we have tipping fees, which are
That's correct.
calculated throughout the county, right? And so when we get to this point, we, in conjunction with the county, will establish a tipping fee. Is that how that works?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Horton, the vendors will propose to us a tipping fee, which is how much per ton it will cost for us to send our materials to that facility. It will be replacing to a large extent what we're currently paying to dispose of that at Tehiguas. Now, it will likely be higher, depending on the technology. It could be the same, but it's likely to be higher. But what it does is it represents for us a long-term solution, because we have no idea what the cost of disposal will be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, particularly when Tehiguas runs out of space. I guess we could expand it, get a new permit, but there's a lot of uncertainty. So what this provides us is perhaps a higher cost, but over a long period of time, more stability and maybe avoiding what would be higher cost down the road.
I've tried to keep up on this a little bit, and some of the proposals are fairly capital intensive in terms of how the mechanism actually works. And I always thought that we'd be talking about bonding of some sort. Is that not the case then? It's all going to be included in the tipping fee?
Councilmember Horton, that's correct. The latter of what you said is correct. The vendors are going to obtain their own financing. One of the things that we decided as a group, meaning all jurisdictions who are involved, is how is this going to be financed? Who would own it? Who would finance it? In the end, we decided it made more sense for the owner to own it, for the vendor to own it, to build it, and to arrange for their own financing, and they would just then give us a tipping fee. That way we kind of are removed from the risk of a facility not doing what it's supposed to, and also avoiding the risk of issuing debt. So it is just, we're paying, an amount just to get through the door.
Okay, that makes good sense. I guess my concern would be somehow or other the vendors have to keep us informed as they're going along, because if we get into say $100 million disposal facility, it's going to be really hard to sell bonds for that, and it's going to be the tipping fee is going to be so high that it wouldn't make any sense. So,
right.
Along the way there have to be checkpoints. I'm really thinking about in a year or two.
Oh, absolutely. Well, even before then, but when we make a selection, they're going to have to demonstrate to us that they are able to secure financing for the project, whether it's $100 million, $50 million, that they have to demonstrate to us that they have a financing team and a plan in place that makes it, for us, a viable project. And then they're going to have time to make it happen, and there's some provisions in the contract where if they don't do it within a year, then they basically their contract expires, and we go to the next vendor. But there are provisions for us to make sure that they are doing the right things to get it built, get it financed, etc.
And does that include a guaranteed waste stream from us as well?
Sure. It'll involve basically a waste supply agreement from each of the jurisdictions that say we're going to be committing our waste stream at a certain level for the duration of the project. There are some reset provisions during the contract we're going to provide to make sure that they occur. That, for example, that after 5 years we can reset our level of commitment, because we don't want to overcommit, if you will, or undercommit. But after 5 years we'll know more, and then we can reset to a more appropriate level.
Well, and the thing that I think we all have to remember, and I've been following this closely too, it's a little bit scary in some ways, because it's a lot of money for a facility, and we know it'll work. I mean, I'm convinced that it's going to turn, garbage into electricity. That's the bottom line. But, it's that simple. But it's not just hocus pocus, because somebody has to pay for all that. And so we're going to do that, but we'll get electricity out of it. So that comes to us. I mean, not just to us, but to the jurisdictions, correct?
Madam Mayor, not necessarily. I think it'll become, the sale of electricity by the vendor could be used, the revenues could be used to offset the tipping fee. So some of the technologies that use higher heat are able to generate more electricity. They probably are more expensive to build, but because they generate more electricity in the back end, that they are able to then offset more of the tipping fees through the sale of that electricity. So it won't necessarily be our electricity. It'll be theirs that they sell and generate revenue to offset the cost to us by way of tipping fees.
Which for the city, that's
the same.
That's the same thing.
Absolutely.
In that you're going to be
so.
cutting off the bill,
Yeah.
instead of giving us a bill for that and a bill for the other.
Right.
Okay, I got that. And then the other thing is, I don't know if this has been factored in. Everybody talks about we don't want to have to find another canyon to throw our trash in, which, the cost of land on the South Coast is huge. And for us to, and I know we talk about shipping it out, but in our minds we have to remember that is the other part of this equation. If we don't do this, I don't want to feel like we're forced into it, because it is a measured thing that we're trying to do, but we would have to buy a whole canyon like we have, Tehiguas right now, and that's huge. So, I just wanted to throw that in there. Sometimes you have to step back a little bit to really know what you're doing. So there we go. Anybody else? Ms. Schneider.
Thank you. Well, and I was going to mention, I think the first reason why we were looking at this to begin with was to extend the life of Tahiguas, because the cost of finding a new one, not just the cost of it, but the permitting and the environmental reports, and who knows how long that would take, and anything in Gaviota will be a nightmare anyway, and as much as we can preserve as much of that open space and ag land as we can and not turn it into a garbage dump, I think everyone would appreciate that. I did have a question on the resolution on number 6, which is talking about the purpose of it is resulting in a long-term waste disposal plan. And it says any considered CT must result in a long-term waste disposal alternative for participating jurisdictions within southern Santa Barbara County, and then in parentheses with a 20-year minimum lifespan required. So is that meaning that technology will be in use for 20 years, meaning that Tahiguas will be life will be extended by 20 years? Is that a minimum? Do we know that those who are responding to the RFP, it's sort of a baseline for them, but it's potentially that it could extend the life beyond 20 years? Could you expand on that little piece there?
Sure, Madam Mayor, Councilmember Schneider. One part of the question, I guess I'm not really sure, but we've asked for at least a 20-year project because we wanted a longer-term solution, and in many ways it actually makes sense for the vendors anyways, because when they issue debt, when they get financing, they usually typically amortize that debt over at least 20 to 30 years, so it has an impact directly on their tipping fee. If it's a 10-year project and they're going to amortize over 10 years the debt, the tipping fees will be a lot higher. But we are looking for a long-term solution, minimum of 20 years. It'll be between 20 and 30 years. Now, as to how that will affect the life of the landfill, Tahiguas landfill, is a more complicated question, because it will depend upon the type of technology that ultimately, if we select one, is selected. We've talked about the non-thermal or anaerobic digestion technologies. They tend to divert less than the thermal technologies. They divert maybe 60-70% of their material. They do produce what's considered to be a compost at the back end as a residual that may or may not be marketable, and if it's not marketable, it's going to have to be landfilled, so that's going to impact the capacity in the life of the landfill. The thermal technologies theoretically can divert up to 100% of the material, where none of it, if any, or very little, is going to have to be landfilled. So obviously a thermal technology provides us the highest degree of diversion and therefore has the highest impact in extending the life of the landfill. But in terms of the math, I don't think we haven't tied it to the 20-year life. We just think 20 years is a minimum in terms of a project. The impact on the landfill is going to be determined by the technology, but I think it's going to be in the area of 20 years probably in terms
We
of
should
extending
probably
its life.
get more information when we get the proposals back
Sure.
from the 8.
That's a great question.
Okay. That will be interesting to see, as will the issue of the electricity that is generated and what happens to it, and how does that relate to putting energy back into the grid or reducing our own energy output, carbon credits. I mean, there's a lot of different alternatives, but that's down the road. We don't have to worry about that today. Today, all we're doing is saying, yes, we still want to look at this some more. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. I don't know. We have a representative of the county here. Do you want to say anything? I don't know.
Not necessarily.
Okay. Because I don't think we're going to send you an email that says we don't want to do this. Don't worry about that. No, there's, I know there are only 4 of us here today, but I did want to say, I think in the past, the other 3, all of us have been, we've been cautiously optimistic about it. Let me put it that way, because it's an expensive project. We're kind of finding new grounds with 5 jurisdictions, together, trying to do a big project. But I don't see, and we all have our concerns, but I think in general we're all ready to move forward, and that's what we're doing. So I just put words in your mouth. Is that okay, Roger?
I was going to make a motion.
No, that's good. That's good. You want to go ahead?
I move that council adopt by reading of title only a resolution of the council of the city of Santa Barbara regarding its intention to commit its community residual solid waste to the conversion technology CT facility to be located at the Tahiguas landfill.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Any more discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Thank you.
You very much. It's good. Just wanted to report, I did go to the funeral for Mayor DeWeese of Lompoc, and he I said this last week, a very wonderful man. I was glad to represent the city in doing that. And we're going to, we issued a statement. We're going to put that in he has a book they're putting together. So we'll make sure that gets, our statement gets in his book. But we will surely miss him. I'm going to be going to a SB-CAG meeting, I think it's next week, and it's not going to be the same. So anyway, I just wanted to let you know that I had represented the city of Santa Barbara at his funeral. Sure. Do we have anything else? Viva la fiesta. No, we did that. Okay. We'll adjourn. Thank you very much.